Hi guys, and welcome to today's video from MaffsGuru. That's me on finding a percentage and expressing as a percentage, part of the Year 8 course over here in Australia. But to be honest with you, it is fairly universal. My name's Darren. Now obviously this is building on previous videos where we looked at fractions, decimals and percentages. And percentages are everywhere. We go shopping, what do you see? Percentage discounts, 10% off, 50% off. And if you can't work those things out in your head, well, you're at the beck and call of some very suspicious price labels that can actually be wrong. So you don't want to pay more than actually you need to. And in fact, sometimes people miscalculate the percentages and give you more off. And that's a bit of a bargain as well. So test scores, all of those type of things, we're going to look at very quickly in this video here. Now, if you haven't already done so, can you subscribe by clicking the doohickey in the corner? I'm not going to be rich. I am certainly not going to be famous. But by clicking that link just tells me that you are watching. Thank you so very much. And above me is a link to MaffsGuru.com, where all of these videos are sorted by textbook and chapter that you can follow along with downloadable notes as well. Okay, so finding percentage and expressing as a percentage. Now you guys, as I say, have had test scores probably for as long as you can possibly remember. And those tests are never out of the same number, are they? They're out of things like, 40. If you've got a really good teacher, they'll make them out of 50. And if you've got a fabulous teacher, they'll make them out of 100. Now, obviously, for a short quiz, you don't want to really have 100 marks. That's a bit random. If I'm going to do a 15-minute quiz, there is no way I'm going to try and put 100 marks in there. So that's why we tend to end up with very different. A test score I recently did for my further math guys was out of 26. Now, yeah, how do we compare that? Say Bob got a score of, 26, let's say he's got 14 out of 26 in maths, and he got 19 out of 34 in science. Which one did he do better in? Well, you could look at that top now and go, well, science. Not necessarily, because what we try and do with percentages is make the tests out of the same number. So we sort of fudge the maths by making them both out of 100. And as I've said in previous videos, when things are out of 100, life is good. We can actually compare these numbers, but we can't compare them very easily when these bottom numbers are different. Okay, so here are some examples of previous work and sort of questions that are relating to this now. So express each of the following as a percentage. Now, when it says express it as a percentage, we know that 34 out of 40 can be written that way. And when we want it as a percent, we want to turn that into a number divided by 100. Now, obviously, in previous videos, we were looking for some number or some easy way of getting from 40 to 100. And no, you don't add 60. But this isn't necessarily that easy here, so there must be another way of doing it. Well, actually there is. So what we can do is we can turn this value here into some sort of a decimal. And we know that as soon as we've got a decimal, we can multiply it by 100, and it will give me my percentage. Oh, I can't do this in my head. I'm going to have to fire up my calculator. Okay, and so there's my calculator. What am I just going to do now? Well, I can use my keyboard. I can use my fraction button and do 34 over 40. And hit enter, and oh, out comes 17 out of 20. Why? Because my calculator is in a strange mode, or rather it's in a standard mode. So I'm going to hit decimal, so it gives me a decimal answer, and there we go. Out comes the value of 0.85. Now obviously that is a decimal value, which to turn into a percentage, and this is true every single time. If you have a decimal number, multiply it by 100 and you will get a percentage. Now, there's lots of ways of doing this. I can do times by 100 on my calculator, which is 85%. So I'm going to do equals 85% there. Or there's place value. Now, I have to say I love place value. Why use a calculator when you don't need to? If you remember, we have 0.85 times by 100. When we times by 100, we move the decimal point that way. How many places? There are 2 zeros, so I'm going to move it 2 places. So 0.85, bounce it 1, 2, does in fact give me that 85. And you must put the percent sign in. What about 13 out of 30? Just the same. 13 out of 30 becomes 13 out of 30. What am I going to do? I'm going to use my calculator. I can't do this type of stuff in my head. I can do 13 divided by 30, hit enter. Now it gives me 0.433333333. Now if you remember, I can write that with that reoccurring dot over the top to say, well, we actually know that that 3 goes on to infinity and beyond. There is a decimal. How do I get to a percentage? Absolutely, multiply it by 100. So I'm going to multiply that 100, gives me 43. 0.3 reoccurring, and we can't forget that percent sign. Okay, we have to make sure that we say that they are equivalent with that percent sign. Now the words out of we know is divide, but they're going to try and trick us because Barry's at it again. We want us as a percentage of exactly the same thing. As a percentage of is just trying to tell you in shortcut which number to put on the top of the fraction and which number to put on the bottom of the fraction. So let's have a look at this one. Express 50 marks as a percentage of 75 marks. Now, first thing is I've said marks in a very strange way. Why? Because the units of these things have to be the same. Shucks, mathematics, you trick me all the time with these units things. Yes, we do. So 50 marks as a percentage of. So that's telling you make a fraction and then turn it into a percentage. So 50 divided by 75. Fire up my calculator again. I don't know why I actually put it down, probably so I could get my big head in the way. 50 divided by 75, hit enter, gives me 0.666666. Now that 7 is there because your calculator is trying to be clever. So I actually again know that that's 0.6 reoccurring, which when I multiply that by 100, and I can use my calculator or place value, I get 66.6. And don't forget the percent and that little dot over the top. There we go. Now, if they tell you to round this to do decimal places, then slightly different. You would write 66.67%, and you wouldn't need that little dot. Okay? Now, generally speaking, I would suggest always write in brackets 2dp to tell the examiner or your teacher that you've rounded to 2 decimal places. Oh, units, units, units. What do you notice? There's now a trick. 20 minutes as a percentage of, we know how to do that now, an hour. So we've got minutes and hours. So first things first, you always convert to the smallest unit of time or measurement. And so because a minute is smaller than an hour, I'm going to convert everything into minutes. So that's 20 minutes as a percentage of 60 minutes. Now that they have the same unit, life is good. So I do 20 on 60 and yep, here's my calculator. 20 divided by 60 is going to give me 0.3 reoccurring. There's a lot of reoccurrings here. You could have thought that I would have chosen nicer values. Times that by 100 to get it into percent. Times 100 or do place value. It gives me again 33.3 reoccurring percent. And that percent again, critically important. Express 50 cents as a percentage of 100 cents. Easy peasy. Are the units the same? Yes, they are. What does it want? It wants a percentage of. That's like saying out of as a percentage. And so we do 50 divided by 100 gives me 0.5. I'm going to times that by 100. It gives me that wonderful value of 50%. Now let's just go back a moment to this question here. What if I actually wanted this as a fraction? Then I can flip my calculator back into standard mode, hit enter there, and lo and behold, out comes, well, nothing particularly useful. Yeah, so in that situation, 33 1/3% is also the same as 100 on 3, which doesn't really help me because I would then have to turn that from an improper fraction into a mixed fraction, and that is no use to me. Okay, you can only convert two values into percentage when they both have the same units. Okay, so again, here is a trick. 60 cents as a percentage of $5. Which is the smallest, cents or dollars? Yeah, absolutely, cents. So that's going to be 60 cents as a percentage of $500. $500, 500 cents. Why? Because there's 100 cents in a dollar. Yay! So once again, do you see how repetitive this is? He says, not very easily. Let's not make it 5,000. Gives me 3 on 25. I don't want that. Let's put it back into my decimal mode. Gives me 0.12. Is that my answer? No, it isn't. Because I'm going to multiply that by 100. I'm going to use my bouncing decimals. 0.12. I'm going to move it 2 places that way. 1, 2. Gives me the grand value of 12%. Fabulous. Yeah? See anything different here? Now, again, a trick. Everyone thinks that the biggest value has to be on the bottom of the fraction. No, it doesn't. All right, when the question tries to trick you, remember it says as a percentage of. That tells you the first value goes on the top, the second value goes on the bottom. They're also trying to change units here. So 2 kilometers as a percentage of 800 meters. So which is the smallest, a kilometer or a meter? Well, as it turns out, it's a meter. So there are 2,000 meters in a kilometer. So I'm going to divide that by 800, and that's perfectly acceptable. We can have that. My calculator's not going to get upset for 2,000 divided by 800. That gives me 2.5. And you're going to say, but hold on a moment, that's going to give me a massive percentage. Yep. Absolutely, but sometimes maths messes with your head to try and give you, sort of to put you off doing what you know is right. So there we go. So 2.5 times by 100 is 250%. Yes, we can absolutely have percentages greater than 100. Right, last part of this video, finding one quantity as a percentage of another. Now again, the percent sign, and we've read this before, percent basically means, sorry, try that one again. Percent basically means divide by 100, okay? And that's exactly where that percent sign comes from. That's in a different video. Yes, of basically means times in maths. So if we can just look at that and go, all right, everywhere I see a percent sign, I'm going to put it over 100, and where I see an of sign, I'm going to put a times, life is good. And we've done this in previous videos. 25% is the same as 25 over 100. The word of gives me times, and 128, and biff pop poof, I've got my sum. So again, I can do 25 divided by 100, hit that and times it by 128, gives me 32. So what that's saying is that 25% of 128 is 32. Now, for this particular question, there are no units. But be careful when they start throwing units in, okay? Because it's a huge trick. The last question is 155% of 60. So 155%, percent is divided by 100, of is times 60. And once again, we do 155, and we're going to divide that by, what did I say, 100? And then we're going to times that by 60, and we are going to get 93. Now, because this 155%, think about 100% as normal, 155% is bigger, isn't it? So we are starting with 60, we're ending up with 93, our answer is bigger. Let me just give you an example with units. If I wanted to find 74% of, let's say, $8, let's write the dollar sign first, 74% of $8. Now, because units are there, does the working out change? Not at all. We just make sure we put the dollar sign back in. So, percent is on 100, of is times, and 8. And I'm going to write it down just because I've got some space. 74 divided by 100, and we're going to times that by 8, is going to give me 5.92. So there's my dollar sign, and it is $5.92. Why is it dollars? Because we were finding some percentage of a quantity, which means that our answer is going to have the units of that quantity. And again, one other thing, if my calculator had, for example, given me 5.9 as an answer, say my calculator given me 5.9, please remember your calculator is a dumb piece of machinery. You're the one who has to go, we're dealing with money here, I must make sure it's to 2 decimal places. And there we go, guys. That is the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching, finding a percentage and expressing as a percentage. There is a doohickey over there to click if you can subscribe. That would be greatly appreciated. Leave a comment below if you got to the end of the video and you found it useful. If not, I hope to see you in our next video. It's really good to see you. Stay safe, yeah? I'll see you again. Take care. Bye.